You're standing in your kitchen. It's Tuesday night. You've got the stove on, a pan warming up, and you reach into that plastic bag on the counter for a tortilla. You feel it before you even look at it. Soft, a little tacky, almost like it's been sitting in oil. You tear off a piece. It stretches instead of cracking. You don't think twice. You never do. That warm smell hits you when the tortilla touches the pan. A little like toast. A little like something sweeter underneath it. You flip it, you fold it, you eat it. Normal Tuesday. But here's the thing, that softness you just felt in your hand. There's a good chance it's not fresh. And there's a good chance it's not really whole wheat either, even if the bag says so in big green letters on the front. And this isn't the first time. Last week, you probably did the exact same thing. The week before that too. You reached into that bag, you didn't read anything, you just cooked. Most people have been fooled by their own tortillas dozens of times without ever noticing. Not because they're careless, but because nobody ever taught them what to actually look for. Nobody sits you down and says, here's what to check before you buy bread. You just trust the picture on the front of the bag. And the picture on the front of the bag is designed by people whose job is to make you trust it. I remember watching my grandmother do this once. She picked up a bag of tortillas at the store, didn't even flip it over to read the label, just pressed 2 fingers into the stack through the plastic. She frowned and put it back on the shelf. I asked her why. She said, that one's too soft. Too soft this early means too much oil. She didn't need a nutrition label. She just knew, the way you know if fruit is ripe by touching it, or if bread has gone stale by the sound it makes when you tap it. That kind of knowledge used to get passed down in kitchens, from a mother to a daughter, from a grandmother standing at a market stall to a kid trailing behind her. Most of it's been lost, not because it stopped working, but because grocery stores got bigger, packaging got shinier, and nobody had the time to teach it anymore. My name's not important. What matters is I spent close to 20 years working around food labels, first in a small grocery store my family ran, then later helping people understand what's actually in their food. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I'm just someone who got tired of watching people get fooled by packaging and decided to start reading the fine print out loud, so other people didn't have to squint at it themselves in the cereal aisle with 3 kids pulling on their sleeve. Before we get into it, I do have a free guide, a 1-page cheat sheet you can keep in your wallet or snap a photo of on your phone for reading any tortilla label in about 10 seconds flat. It's totally optional. Links in the description if you want it. But everything in this video is free either way. You don't need the guide to get everything you need today. I'd rather you learn the actual rule and never need the cheat sheet at all. Here's my promise to you. Everything in this video comes from something you can check yourself. An ingredient label, a government food database, a public nutrition guideline. No guessing, no rumors, no "I heard somewhere." For example, the FDA requires anything labeled whole wheat to list whole wheat flour as an actual ingredient, not just wheat flour, which sounds the same to most people but legally isn't. That's not my opinion. That's federal labeling law, and you can look it up yourself on the FDA's own site in about 30 seconds. Keep that one in your pocket, because it matters more than you think, and we're going to come back to it. Now let's talk about what actually goes wrong with tortillas, not which company is bad, because honestly, that's the wrong question to be asking. The real question is, what's in the bag? And that changes brand to brand, batch to batch, sometimes even store to store, depending on where it was made and how long it sat on a truck. So instead of chasing a villain, I'm going to teach you how to catch the problem yourself in any brand, in any store for the rest of your life. That's the whole point of this channel. I'd rather hand you a flashlight than just tell you where I think the monsters are. Problem 1. Added oils that don't need to be there. A lot of tortillas list 2, sometimes 3 different fats on the ingredient panel. palm oil, soybean oil, sometimes even partially hydrogenated oil, which is the old school trans fat stuff that's mostly banned now in the US, but can still legally show up in small amounts under certain labeling rules. A traditional flour tortilla needs flour, water, salt, and a little fat. That's really it. That's what people have made for generations. When you see a long list of oils, that's not tradition. That's a shelf life trick. Oil keeps dough soft and pliable for weeks instead of days, which sounds nice until you realize that's not what fresh food is supposed to do. Dough conditioners and preservatives with names you can't pronounce. Things like calcium propionate or azotocarbonamide. That second one is actually banned as a food additive in the European Union, but it's still legal here in the United States in small amounts. I want to be careful here. These aren't necessarily dangerous in the tiny doses used in food, but they're a signal, like a warning light on a dashboard. They tell you this tortilla was engineered to survive weeks on a delivery truck and months on a shelf, not to be fresh the way your grandmother's kitchen table bread was fresh. Problem 3. The whole wheat trick I mentioned a minute ago. Companies are legally allowed to call something wheat, or even put a picture of a wheat stalk on the front of the package without the product actually being whole wheat. If whole wheat flour isn't the very first ingredient listed, meaning the ingredient there's the most of you're mostly eating white flour with a little brown coloring and a health-sounding name stamped on the front. This one catches more people than almost anything else on this list because it's designed to. The packaging isn't lying exactly. It's just letting you assume something it never actually promised. Tortillas aren't supposed to taste salty on their own. They're meant to be a neutral wrapper for whatever you put inside them. But some brands pack 3, sometimes 400 milligrams of sodium into a single small tortilla. That's close to a fifth of your entire recommended daily sodium intake in one piece of bread before you've even added the salsa, the cheese, or the seasoned meat that's going inside it. Problem 5. Added sugar where you'd never expect it. This one surprises people the most. Tortillas are bread. Bread isn't supposed to be sweet, but check the ingredient list and you'll often find sugar or dextrose or high fructose corn syrup sitting a few lines down. Not enough to taste like dessert, but enough to make the dough browner, softer, and a little more addictive tasting without you ever clocking why you like one brand more than another. A trace amount for browning is normal and has been used for generations. But when sugar or a sugar derivative shows up twice in the same ingredient list under 2 different names, that's not for browning anymore, that's for taste and for keeping you buying that exact bag again next week. Now here's the part I actually want you to remember. The one rule that works in any grocery store on any shelf for any brand you will ever pick up for the rest of your life. Flip the bag over and count the ingredients. If you count more than 7 or 8, put it back on the shelf. A real tortilla, the kind your grandmother or your great-grandmother would recognize on sight, has flour, water, fat, salt, and maybe a leavening agent like baking powder to help it puff a little on the pan. That's 5 ingredients. Give it a little room, 1 or 2 more, for a natural preservative like ascorbic acid. Once you're past 8 ingredients, you're not looking at a tortilla anymore. You're looking at a shelf-life science project wearing a tortilla costume. That's it. That's the whole rule. You don't need a chemistry degree, and you don't need my cheat sheet, honestly. You just need to count. Let's build on that rule with a second one, because once you know to flip the bag, you might as well use the extra 5 seconds well. You'll see this word on flour tortillas constantly, enriched wheat flour. It sounds like a good thing, like the flour got extra nutrition added to it. And in a narrow technical sense, that's true. By law, enriched flour has certain B vitamins and iron added back in. But here's the catch nobody tells you. Those nutrients were only added back because the milling process stripped them out in the first place, along with most of the fiber. Enriched isn't a bonus. It's a patch job. It's the food industry version of taking the wheels off a car, selling you the car, and then handing you a spare tire as a gift. If you see enriched flour as the first ingredient instead of whole wheat flour, you're eating a tortilla with most of its natural fiber and nutrition already removed, then partially topped back up with a vitamin pack. Rule 3. Watch the serving size, not just the numbers next to it. This is a trick that isn't unique to tortillas. It's everywhere in packaged food, but tortillas hide it especially well. A label might say 90 calories and 180 milligrams of sodium, and that sounds pretty reasonable. But check the serving size right above those numbers. If the serving size is listed as half a tortilla, and you, like every human being who has ever made a taco, are about to eat one whole tortilla or two, you need to double or triple that number in your head before it means anything real. Companies aren't lying when they do this. It's completely legal. But it's built to make the label look better at a glance than the actual thing you're about to eat. So why does any of this happen? It's not because companies are twirling a mustache trying to trick you out of spite. It's simpler than that, and honestly kind of boring once you understand it. It's just money, shelf space, and logistics. A tortilla made the traditional way, with real, simple ingredients, might last 5 to 7 days before it gets stiff, dries out, or starts growing mold. That's a real problem for a company that's shipping product across 3 or 4 states, sitting on a truck for a day or two, then sitting on a store shelf for another week before someone finally buys it. Add stabilizers, preservatives, and a longer list of dough conditioners, and suddenly that same tortilla can last 6 weeks instead of 6 days at room temperature. Fewer spoiled batches, fewer returns from stores, more profit squeezed out of every single bag that makes it onto a truck. And here's the part that actually matters more than blaming any one company. Nobody along that entire chain has a strong personal reason to slow it down. The farmer selling wheat doesn't control what happens at the mill. The mill doesn't control what the tortilla company decides to add. The tortilla company is competing against every other tortilla company on price and shelf life, so if their competitor's product lasts 6 weeks and theirs only lasts 1, they lose the shelf space at the store. The truck driver just wants the product to survive the drive. The store manager just wants fewer bags going in the trash before they sell. Every single person along that chain is making a locally reasonable decision, and the result, stacked all together, is a tortilla that can survive a nuclear winter, but doesn't taste much like the one your grandmother made. It's not a conspiracy, it's just how the incentives line up when nobody along the way is required to think about the whole picture. Once you understand that, you stop looking for a single villain to be angry at, and you start looking at labels instead, because the label is the one place in this whole chain where you actually get a vote. So let's flip it around. What does a genuinely good tortilla actually look like? Here's what to look for, and what tells you a brand is doing this the right way, on purpose. A short ingredient list, like we already talked about. 5 to 8 ingredients, all of them things you recognize from your own kitchen, nothing that sounds like it belongs in a chemistry set. Second, a best buy date that's weeks away, not months away. If a tortilla is shelf stable for 4 or 5 months sitting at room temperature on a store shelf, that's not a convenient feature for you. That's a sign of heavy preservatives doing a lot of work behind the scenes. Third, whole wheat flour or corn masa flour listed as the very first ingredient, not buried second or third behind water or enriched flour, but genuinely first, meaning it's the ingredient there's the most of by weight. Fourth, refrigeration. A lot of the better small batch and regional tortilla makers need to be kept cold because they're not loaded with stuff designed to survive weeks on a warm shelf. If you walk past the refrigerated section of your grocery store and see tortillas sitting there with a short ingredient list, that's usually a genuinely strong sign you found the real thing. Fifth, and this one's simple, does the sugar content say 0 or close to it? A traditional tortilla, corn, or flour has little to no added sugar. If you see 2 grams or more of sugar on a plain tortilla, not a flavored or sweet variety, just a regular one, that's usually a sign of the added sugar trick we talked about earlier. If you're standing in the aisle and you find one that checks even 3 of these 5 boxes, you're in good shape, genuinely. My personal pick, if I had to point you toward just one type to look for, is any brand of corn tortilla that lists corn, water, and lime. That's it. 3 ingredients, sometimes with a touch of salt. That's the traditional nixtamalization process, the same basic method used for corn tortillas for hundreds of years, going back long before packaging or shelf life science ever existed, and it's still out there on store shelves today if you know exactly what to look for. So here's your rule. One more time, because I genuinely want it to stick in your head the next time you're standing in that aisle with a bag in each hand. Flip the bag, count the ingredients, and if it's more than 8, put it back. Check whether it's whole wheat or enriched flour listed first. Check the sugar. Check the serving size before you trust the numbers next to it. None of that takes more than 15 seconds once you know what you're looking for, and after you've done it 3 or 4 times, you won't even need to think about it anymore. It'll just be something you notice, the same way my grandmother noticed a tortilla was too soft with 2 fingers through the plastic without ever needing to read a single word. Now here's what I want from you, and I mean this literally. Right now, not later, not when you get a chance. Go to your kitchen, pantry, fridge, wherever your tortillas actually live. Pull out the bag, flip it over, and tell me 3 things in the comments below this video. What brand it is, how many ingredients are on that list, and whether whole wheat or corn flour is listed first, second, or buried somewhere further down. And tell me what state or what country you're writing from. I read every single comment on this channel myself, and it genuinely tells me what to go check next. If a bunch of you are all finding the exact same sneaky ingredient hiding in the exact same popular brand, that tells me exactly what next week's video needs to dig into. Speaking of next week, we're doing bread. Same rules apply, same flip the bag method you just learned today, and honestly, some of what's hiding in a basic loaf of sandwich bread on your counter right now is worse than anything we talked about in this video. I'll see you there.